Why you must measure your projects. My name is Guilherme and I'm a project management expert. I help professionals and companies to develop their project management skills to be more successful there, of course. How do I do that in practice? In practice, I do provide training for companies and for people to make sure that they have the right knowledge. I also provide mentoring to help them to apply this knowledge. For example, I have mentoring cases where people, where there's a project support officer that's transitioning for a junior project manager position, and I help her how to align and how to handle a project, how to organize, what to gain clarity in what needs to be done, to gain clarity in how to organize a project, critical path, KPIs, and so on, how to communicate with stakeholders to make sure she has the knowledge and the confidence to execute that. So, because in the end, if your goal is to develop your project management skills, my goal is to support you in that journey there. Don't forget, this is the warm up of the Project Management Summit. The Project Management Summit is a free event, and I'm going to do it, where I'm going to help you to give the next step to develop your project management skills. So we are going to have 3 classes with exercises, with extra content reading, and by the end, for people participating, everything, you even get a certificate there. What is important that you need to do? You need to subscribe to make sure you get all the details, all the information, the links for downloading the material. Of course, and I have your email to send you information about the certificate and so on. Again, everything is free. The only thing you need to do here is clicking the link and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to like and share because that helps this video to go to more people and more people can learn project management. Also, you help me in this journey there, what I'm doing here, so I'm really appreciating there. So the topic we are going to talk about today is why you must measure your project. When you might have seen videos, other videos from me or other content from me saying that every project should have at least 2 KPIs. If you don't know what's a KPI, KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. Key Performance Indicator is, of course, it's a measurement to help you to achieve one goal. So every project should have a clear goal. If you do not understand that, there's a special content just explaining to you why it's important for your project and of course for your career, for your personal life that you define a goal there. But the next step is of course defining actions that you need to take and then measuring those actions there. So this is why you have a KPI to measure the project performance that you do there. Before jumping in directly in details, I want to give you some background about that also because this is quite important. So if you look for the 7th edition of the Project Management Body of Knowledge, also called PMBOK, the PMBOK is developed by the Project Management Institute. PMI is the biggest project management organization around the world, and the PMBOK it's they call it a project management standard to help to guide project managers into project execution there. And they have principles that you need to execute a project successfully there. And I'm talking about principles that you can use in any type of project, but they also have what's called a performance domain. What's a performance domain? It's a group of related activities. You see in the screen here the definition that they are critical to be executed effective to make sure that you can guarantee the project outcome. What's a project outcome? The project will reach its goal. The project will deliver the value that the organization is expecting there. Because value is the ultimate goal of any project there. Value can have several types of different definition. Can be money, can be measured in a business case, can be customer satisfaction, can be reducing cost, being more increasing service level for a company, for a customer, for example. All those different type of value then of course needs to have a defined when you start a project what type of value you are trying to achieve, but you need to find a way to measure those values. And one of those performances domain is of course measurement. Why the performance domain measurement? Because you want to assess how the project is progressing. That's very straightforward. Simply because if you are not measuring anything, if you're not if you're not measuring, if you're not controlling anything, that means also you are not managing the project properly there. Why this is so critical? I've seen some companies where they had KPIs, and I really mean KPIs again, key performance indicator between brackets, because The way they were assessing how the project was going there was basically on the project manager feeling there, which is a very, very dangerous thing to have. First of all, because it's very subjective. You're going to find project managers that they're always trying to showcase how good they're doing. And even though the project can be a complete mess, some people they want to showcase that they are doing really well because they think the status of the project is a direct reflection of their performance, which is not true. But in the end, they're going to say whatever is going on in the project, they're always going to say that the project is green because a lot of times when they do something like that, they ask green, yellow, or red. They use attract lights to make it simple. And you're going to see people always saying, oh, my project is green, my project is green, because that's the feeling, because they want to show that everything is good. Although they have a lot of problems, the project is green. What's the challenge with that? Well, you don't. If the project is always green, it might be that you don't get the right attention that you need, and don't get the right support that you need, and it might end be that this create like a kind of a snowball that or the problem that will blow up in the end. That's how companies create what's the so-called watermelon project. What's a watermelon project? That from outside it looks green because there's someone reporting this is green, but it's fully red inside, meaning there's full of problems, delays, quality issues, and so on. So to avoid a situation like that, you need to measure your projects because that's why it's a performance domain here. And what are reasons why you really should do that? First of all, you can evaluate your performance versus the plan. And I know that at some point there's someone that say, yeah, but I'm using Agile, so I don't have a plan. If you think because you are using Agile, you don't have a plan, you do not understand Agile. All projects, they have a plan. Of course, the planning effort can change. The flexibility that you might have in the plan sometimes change from organization, but all projects have a plan. If you are using Scrum, for example, you have a release date or you have a forecasted release date. Maybe you have more than one release. Maybe you have a whatever project that depending you are doing, you have a go live date, you have a date. If you are working with construction, you have a date where you need to deliver. If you are working with a new product development, a physical product, you have a date that you expect to start production. So every time you have a plan. And why you want to have this measurement, those key performance indicators? To see the performance or how the project is going versus this plan. Let me give you an example of a construction project. Let's say that you're building a house, and then say in December the house needs to be ready and delivered for the customer. And you are half of way in the state of the project, so you should, if we do linear distribution here, you should be 50% of the project, the house done. But you don't have a KPI, so you don't know if you're going to be there. So you keep working, then what happening in reality? At some time in November, people look around and say, but it's not possible. We are not going to complete this house by December. And there's a fully chaotic situation then, because there you're going to see the customer is going to be pissed off, depending on the type of relation we have, meaning relation not personal relation, but a contractual relation. There might be penalties, fees, extra costs involved there. This happens every day because people don't measure the projects properly. That's why it's so important to understand again your performance. In the case of the project, if you are 50% of the cost of the house that you should be, the plan was to be at 50%. Where are you? Oh, I'm at 60%. Oh, nice. So you're ahead. That might be that depending how it goes, you might be able to anticipate the delivery. Or that might be that say, okay, I'm 45%. Okay, so there's 5% that you need to find a plan to create an action plan to try to come back, to try to get back on track. And again, for the people using Agile, Scrum, if you have a release, let's assume that you have 10 sprints for your release there. And then, of course, for your release, you might have more than one release, but if it's a release number one or release number two, you always have a minimum MVP for this release. That's MVP stands for minimum viable product. That's the minimum amount of features or the minimum functionality of the system or of the software or whatever you're releasing there. That's why I'm calling MVP that you need to release. So let's say that you have 10 sprints, you have 5 sprints, and from these MVP there you have only 10% of the items. And if you run, say, let's say you are releasing, you have a velocity per scrum based on the already in the past sprints, you have a velocity per sprint of 100. I'll say to complete my MVP there, I need 1,000 points. And say, okay, I have another 5, I can reach a maximum 500. So yeah, I'm not going to make the release. And I'm not saying that you should have a plan straightforward or whatever, but you need to have this thinking there. Because if you're using Agile, if you're using Waterfall, if you're using hybrid approach, it's very key that you understand your performance versus a forecast, versus a plan that you have. Why that? Because if you understand that you're backwards, if you have issues, if you do that in advance, you have time to try to implement countermeasures there. But very important, you can provide information for stakeholders because when you are providing information for stakeholders, you are also managing expectations. I can guarantee to you the worst thing that can happen is that people are expecting you to deliver something, release something, and then tomorrow you say, oh, by the way, I'm late for 3 months. And depending on the type of project, I'm going to mention here a case that I've seen this year that there was a junior project manager handling a project there. So he had a design, he had a date to complete the design to release parts for production or to go for the manufacturing step of the project. What happened here for the design? The first estimation, okay, was 6 months, and the people say let's add some safety because the team is new, blah blah blah. They add 6 months. 4 months later, they come back say, by the way, the project is delayed. 4 months later, you're already very close to the delivery. So we need another 6 months. Then there was a lot of discussion, pressure from management, of course. So they come back, okay, we are going to do another 3 months, extra 3 months. So 9 months later, they were 1 or 2 weeks for the delivery. They come back and say, by the way, I need another 3 months. Then, of course, again, a lot of escalations. Everyone was pissed off, not only because of the delay, because if you do not manage the expectation properly, and to manage the expectations, you need those measurements, you are going to end up in the situation that people are expecting, okay, now everything is okay, everything is going well, and suddenly you get on this, no, not only we are not going to hit our deadline that's next week, but we need another 3 months. Say, if it's you're talking about 3 months, you should have known this way in advance. Because in this case, at least you had a chance to try to do something. But continuing my story here, so they agreed with an extra 3 months. So they end up from 6 months to 9 months, then 12 months. And then after they agreed in these 12 months, what happened next? Okay, they create a new baseline for the project. Everyone approved it. Most people were not happy. But they did that in a Thursday, this agreement with all the approvals, making it is official and so on. On Monday, people come back. By the way, the project is delayed again another 3 weeks. Say, what kind of management is that? Why? Because you're not evaluating the work being done there, and then you're creating huge frustrations with all stakeholders involved there. So measuring the project is important to providing information with stakeholders, and providing stakeholders is important to make sure you're managing expectations. Make an analogy here for managing expectations there. Let's so you understand why people get upset with something like that. Let's say you buy a new car and you go to the dealer and the dealer tells you, on Monday you can come here and you're going to pick up your new car. And you go there on Monday, you say, hey, where is my new car? And the dealer comes and tell you, by the way, something happened and your car is delayed in 2 weeks. And first of all, you're going to tell the dealer, why you did not call me to tell me that, and you waited for me to come here to find out this. That will be your first frustration. Then you say, okay, 2 weeks, then you wait another 2 weeks. That might create a lot of other type of issues in this analogy. For example, if you sold your car, or if you need your car to travel or something like that, you don't have it. So that can create a lot of other types of issue for you because you were expecting to get your car there. And 2 weeks later, you come back to the dealer and the dealer tells you again, by the way, your car is delayed, you need another week. Then you get, why you did not tell me before and what's going on? This is creating frustration with your customer. Think about that. This analogy here, if you're buying a new car and going to the dealer and your car is not there, that's the same type of thing that happens with stakeholders. That's very important that so you have good information to share with your stakeholders. The other one, track resource and budget and so on. And you can imagine the case that I mentioned that the project budget design team was for 6 months and then you end up in 1 year. First of all, your budget, because you have, in this case, you have, I think 3 or 4 designers. These people were allocated to work in the project for 6 months. Now they are going to work in a project for 1 year. So it means that you just double your cost there. That hits your business case. That might hit other projects that because the pipeline, if you have a portfolio management there, people are more expecting, okay, I'm going to have those designs available after 6 months. Then you plan another project to start. Then you don't have it. That also create another impact there. So in these extra costs might even kill the business case. So that's very important to understand that. I just mentioned in the beginning that all projects exist to deliver value for the organization. A lot of organizations, they are going to measure value with a business case. You can imagine that if you double your development costs, might be as well that you killed your business case, that your NPV, net present value, goes to zero, that your margin goes down, and that this project is not interesting more for the organization. Why? Just because lack of a good assessment how the project is going, lack of measuring the project, lack of having good key performance indicators there. And of course, you need to understand the benefits of the project. In this case, for example, in the analogy of the car, the benefit for you, for example, if you are waiting your car to travel, you don't have the car, you cannot travel. For our organization is we are going to we are going to release this, we are going to put this into production, and we are going to start to sell. Usually the organization sells it, or any other benefit that you might have. Well, if you don't sell, the organization will not get the money they were expecting, so they are going to get a hit in the results there. It might as well be that create other types of impact. Maybe you're expecting that you're going to maybe let's assume that you are talking about a project for a warehouse, so the company could support more customers. So that means the company will not be able to support extra customers that again hit the financial results for the company, might hit all the customers that might be waiting, so on. Measuring a project also shows that you have accountability. What's accountability? You know what you're doing. You know what's going on there. Everybody hates a project manager that does not know what's going on there. Meaning that there's a type of project manager, I've seen that a lot, that, oh, no one told me that. So nobody can blame me because I was not aware of. Let me give you some news. It does not matter. If you are aware of this or you're not aware of this, it's your responsibility as a project manager to find out what was going on in your project. It's your responsibility if you're using Agile as a product owner, as a Scrum Master, to understand what's going on in your project. That's the bare minimum. Why you are going to pay someone that does not know what's going on there? And those people, they do not understand why the organization don't see that in a good way, and also why they usually the teams they don't like to work with those people, because what those people do, they throw people under the bus, saying, "Oh, my design." Let me go back to the example that I mentioned to you. My design engineer here, he did not tell me that there was a problem. As a bare minimum, your job is ask. Dear designer, are we on track or not? What are we going on? Depending what you are doing, break down, find intermediary milestones, find a good way to find measure progress there, and how to measure progress can vary a lot depending on the type of your project you are doing there. Can be if you are working with you can try to assess this based on the number of features released depending on what you are doing. If you are working in construction, you can use cube meter to assess depending on what you are doing. Square, then you can use physical measurement to see what kind of progress that you have there. If you're working with the design, depending on the time of the design, of course, you can look for the number of drawings released, all this kind of different stuff. But you need to find a way to measure your projects. Because if you're not doing that, you're not demonstrating that you're accountable for the project. As a project manager, what are key characteristics to have as a project manager there? It's ownership. It's being proactive. If you don't have those tools, you are not accountable. The next very important item is to make sure that you can prioritize and you can manage risk and opportunities. Because if you, depending, let's go back to the example of the house. If you see that you are half of way, 50% of your plan, and your house is in 45%, you see there's a risk that you're going to delay. So you can create countermeasures for that, meaning you can put the work, you can organize the team to work in the house, for example, during Saturdays to try to recover the extra 5%. You can ask the team to work 1 hour extra every day to try to recover that. And you can come up with all those types of different scenarios how you can come back to put the project on track to avoid the risk of a delay. But in case of an opportunity, you can look, okay, I'm going to finish, instead of finishing a house in December, I'm going to finish the house in November. What does it mean? Oh, does it mean that I'll have my team available? I can start another house in December, so I can try to get more money there. That's an opportunity that you can manage, and you can be aware of that. All those things, they're only going to be feasible if you understand what's your situation there. A good risk management process, it's an anticipation risk. It's anticipating risks. You're going to look for the future. You're going to estimate what you have, and based on the level of risk that you have, you're going to define what kind of measures that you're going to take there. But you're not going to be able to anticipate anything if you don't measure your performance. So you might seem this is quite straightforward there. And the last one, of course, you need to understand that if you are going to do it, you are meeting the customer acceptance criteria if you are measuring that. And when you talk about measurement, you can look for measurements for quality, you can measure for measurements on performance, on time, on cost. I can tell you right now that all projects should have at least two KPIs. And pay attention, I'm saying at least. I'm not saying only. Why at least two KPIs? One, to understand what's the time. Are we going to meet the plan or not? And again, meeting the plan can vary a lot depending if you're working with waterfall, with agile, if you're following a hybrid approach. But meeting the plan is, are you going to meet the release of the product? That's the high level plan. That's the big milestone. That's the biggest deadline that you usually have in any type of project there. Of course, you can have intermediary milestones. There's a lot of other stuff that you can look into that. But the bare minimum you need to understand if you're going to be able to deliver the value when is expected there. So that's why you always need a time KPI and a cost KPI, because I've never seen a company where cost was not important. Why? Because if you have a reason to work into a project, you cannot keep throwing money in a project indefinitely. That's a kind of people that think agile, that does not have a plan, does not have a budget. They are thinking, I don't know, of course, in which organization they are working there. I've never seen an organization in my life that would put, to say, let's use Scrum, that would put 10 people there with no release date, with undefended, and say, yeah, you have a budget for the next 10 years, just hang around there, make sure that does not exist. Companies, they don't keep throwing money on stuff that they don't see the results. Keep that in mind. And again, you might say, but that's obvious. I can tell you it's obvious. It might seem obvious, but it's not done in practice. I've seen probably tens of project managers having those type of issues just because they do not understand where the project is going. They do not have a basic way to measure it. I've seen companies using those KPIs that are not objective KPIs, meaning that say you ask the project manager, how do you feel about the project? Green, yellow, or red? Of course, they do not ask like that. They ask, okay, what's the state of your project? Green, yellow, or red? The question should be, okay, if you say it's green, why is it green? Based on what? And you should get at least some type of measurement there. Because people if say it's green because the team is working hard, we are working together, we are being proactive, we are tackling risks. This is all bullshit. It's green. Why? Are we on track for the release? Are you on track with your budget? And of course, then you can add more stuff if you want. Are you on track with quality? Because if you don't have those things, just saying, we are motivated, we are working well together, the team is working hard. Well, in general, for most of people, most of people really work hard. So it's not about working hard or not, but it's about delivering the results that you want. You can work hard and not delivering anything. That's also why it's nice when you look a bit on for example, on Scrum, they talk about outcomes. So what you are looking there is to measure the outcome, to find a way to measure an outcome and not an output. What's the difference? An output is doing a lot of things. For example, the team is working hard. Let me give you an example. For example, if you're using Scrum, the team is working hard. The team start working a lot of stories. There's, I don't know, 50 stories in progress. Then you say, okay, those stories are completed in the end of the sprint. And then people say, yes. Do they meet the definition of done? No. So, yeah. So you create a lot of outputs because you're creating a lot of stories, but they do not meet your quality criteria there. So the outcome is not there. For a house, let's put an example of a house. Say the team is working a lot there. There's a lot of extra work. And let's say, for example, I'm in the past, I've for a period of my life, in the beginning of my career, I worked even as a site manager because of circumstance in one of my projects. So because I was working as a planning and controller, the site manager he got sick, and I jumped in and I was the site manager for I don't know 2 or 3 months handling the project. As a site manager, what I did there, I create a plan to concrete the foundations that we had there. It was infrastructure project, so heavy construction there, and we had a lot of big foundations that we had to build. So I create a plan to concrete around 200 cubic meters per week. That should cover all. That should cover. We would do like that for. I don't know. The plan was doing that for around six weeks. That should cover all the big foundations that we had to do that. And of course, there was a lot of work that we had to get ready to make sure that all the steels are in place, the holes are ready, blah 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 blah. But that everything comes before the concrete there, before. And how to measure that? Well, the plan is to do 200 square meters, 200 cubic meters per week. In a week, if you do 200, good. In a week, if you do 100, say you're getting behind there. And in this case, there was other type of challenges. How much concrete I could get in a week from my supplier. It was a small city, blah blah. There's all the kind of constraints that I had there. But what's the important thing? If you're not tracking those basic items, those basic measurements, you're not going to find out where you are. The same thing if you're handling your suppliers. I see a lot of people saying, Oh, I asked my supplier. My supplier has to deliver whatever component, whatever material next week. My question is, have you confirmed that information? No, no, no. But that's what's in the purchase order. You would be surprised how many times the plan does not work as planned. I can even rephrase that to say most of the times your plan will not go exactly as planned. That means the supplier will not be able to deliver it to you next week. That will be the week after that, or might be that for some type of reason they are 1 month delayed. That's why it's important that you check. And you need to find a way to measure that so you also can compare with your plan. If you're working in an assembly line, let's say that let me give you another analogy here. Let's say that you're assembling a car there, and the supplier for something for the tires, they're late. So you assemble everything, but you don't have the tires. What you are going to do with those cars? The cars are not ready because you don't have the tire there. So there's all those kind of impacts of this ripple effect that can happen for things that are going to hit you. That's why it's essential for you as a project manager to make sure you measure your project properly, that you have key performance indicators that make sense and that help you to assess if you're going to be able to deliver the value for the company there. And when you are thinking about key performance indicators, try to not having too many, because I've seen one side where people don't measure anything, the other side where people try to have 20 different key performance indicators. That does not make sense. You need to find key items that really are worthwhile to measure. Of course, sometimes you can break down to understand how those smaller items will impact your KPI. That's understandable, but make sure that you don't create too many also. So at least two you should have. Normally you have more. I've seen in projects very often five or six that give you meaningful information about the project. If you have too many, if you say I have 50 key performance indicator, you are going to the other opposite. There's some type of issue there, so you need to fine tuning again what you really need to measure. But in any situation, you need to measure your progress, your project to understand how you're going there. If you're not measuring anything, you're not managing your project. I can tell you that. Again, don't forget this content is part of the warm-up for the Project Management Summit. The Project Management Summit is a free event I'm going to make to help you to progress in your project management skills. The only thing that you need to do here is clicking the link here in the description of the video. Subscribe. Also, don't forget to like and share this video so it can get to more people and more people can learn project management, but also helps me and my channel to grow. So I'm really appreciating if you can do that. If you have questions, feel free to ask those questions in this video or reach out on my Instagram. I have Q&A box that's open every day. You can ask all project management related questions. Because in the end, if your goal is to develop your project management skills, my goal is to support you in this journey. Thank you and see you soon. Bye.